Visitors on the websites attempting to access the compromised sites on Monday briefly met with defaced pages displaying extremist slogans such as "Access denied by PCP," "We will rise again," "White power worldwide," and 1488 Hail Hitler. Immediately the websites were defaced, Kenyans flooded the internet, expressing their concerns on why crucial ministries are vulnerable to cyber attacks. The government has since confirmed that several of its official websites were rendered inaccessible following a cybersecurity incident on Monday, with the attacks expected to have been carried out by a group identified as PCP at Kenya. The government initiated its incident response and recovery efforts, supported by various stakeholders, to mitigate the effects of the incident, and has since restored accessibility to the affected websites and assured the public that the situation is under control. Interior PS Raymond Omolo has emphasized that the government continues to monitor the situation closely, urging citizens to remain vigilant, take necessary precautions, and report any suspicious activity. PS Omolo has said that the attack was in breach of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, and those found culpable shall face the full force of the law. Despite the incident, the government has reaffirmed its commitment to strengthen cyber resilience with increased collaboration between government agencies, the private sector, and other stakeholders. The Ministry of ICT on its part has assured the public that the issue affected website access only. No personal or government data was accessed, altered, or lost. The government says it has applied immediate mitigation measures and took the necessary actions to secure the affected sites. Among other issues is increased monitoring to prevent similar issues. While ministries such as Defense and Treasury appear to have been spared, the scale of the attack has raised alarm over Kenya's cybersecurity preparedness. This breach comes at a time when Kenya is increasingly digitizing public services, making cybersecurity a cornerstone of national security.
All right, and that is the conversation you're having this morning, government systems hacking and what options are there at the moment. And this morning we want to ask the question what the attacks yesterday tells us and where the weaknesses lie and what is urgently needed to keep Kenya secure in this digital age. And to help me with this conversation in studio with me is Mark Obar, that is an ICT expert. We do understand yesterday from that story that we've seen that the hackers targeted key government websites, making them inaccessible for some time, of course, by altering their visual appearance and content, and of course, replacing legitimate information with unauthorized material. Karibu sana to studio, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. I want us to go right in. It's not the first time, of course, that we are seeing such incidences of attacks on government websites. And I do not want to be, a party pooper and say that, I certainly wish that it's the last time. But why does it keep happening if it's not the first time? We keep on seeing this recurring over and over again.
Okay, so particularly when it comes to yesterday's attack on a key government website, that was probably a premeditated one. There are various kinds of attacks by classification. There are opportunistic attacks, there are premeditated attacks. So the yesterday's one can be classified as a premeditated one, meaning that the vulnerability had already been established before, and therefore there is a malicious kind of an operation that was going on towards that, and so they were waiting for the right opportunity to carry out that attacks, that kind of an attack. So what happens is that across the world today, various individuals, groups, organizations, or even governments have established cyber what we can refer to as offensive and defensive cyber activities or operations. So in offensive terms is to ensure that you are able to carry out a specific activity with the aim of either informing somebody or destroying. So in this case, this looked to be some sort of an activism kind of an attack. So in a digital world, we refer to it as hacktivism, which is meant to propagate a certain message or to let you know that, hey, if you continue, we are here and we are probably in your systems, and if you continue doing this, then probably we will take appropriate actions to ensure that you are well put to your place where you should, or you are well informed that we have the capabilities of destroying you or causing chaos or causing panic to the public. Yeah, so reviewing what happened yesterday, that was called a redirecting attack. So the attack primarily, it exploited maybe I'll do the technical terms and then explain them in the simple way. So to carry out such an attack, there are three layers that could have been exploited. The first layer is looking for the vulnerabilities within the websites, or within the web servers, or the specific web servers or web content. So in that case, it can be done on the codes, the various codes, or the plugins, failure or vulnerability within the plugins, within the codes, or within even the web server itself through direct access. And then there is another thing that is called SQL injection. So SQL injection is primarily having a penetration that enters to the database, and then it puts a code, a malicious code within the database to extensively direct people who come to those websites to a different website. And then the third option for access in such a case is probably by stealing of loggings through something known as social engineering or phishing, which I don't think is the case. So in this case, probably they exploited the opportunity of the vulnerability of the codes or the plugging systems of the website that is available. Alternatively, they could have used SQL injection for that particular attack. Now, once this is done, then these guys did not really change anything up on the website, the government websites. What you are seeing on TV there is a redirect. It means that it's redirecting people to a specific website. That is why when the government terminated it, automatically their websites came back, because there was no complete alteration on the interface of their websites. What that means is that a redirect is meant to direct you to a particular website, which for the purposes of either seeing that information, what is going on. In this case, I think it's an activism thing, because you could see the kind of messaging that they were having, probably referring to Hitler, and then you can make a connection to what they were trying to do, based on the fact that just recently, Kenya being a good friend of Israel, Kenya recently facilitated the transfer of some Palestinians, Israelis transfer of Palestinians through Kenya to South Africa. And so you can connect the dots and see that probably they were just trying to send a message. In other cases, it would be maybe for ransomware, or for ransom demands, in which they would inject a ransomware into the system, and then until you pay, or steal data and all that. So, but on a shorter scale of things, it's important for you to understand that that was just a redirect. They didn't actually disconfigure the entire interface of the websites affected.
And I see you're drawing comparison from, or drawing, your statement from what was happening, how, the flight from Kenya went to, South Africa.
Yeah.
But now, would you say that this attack might have come from, people who are not Kenyans, who are not in Kenya? Because, for a very long time, we've heard of the Mulot boys, for instance, of course, who are tied to more financial fraud and not about the ideological, the fraud type, like we've seen. So would you say that this attack was done by, people who are not in this country, but rather outside the country?
Yes, yes. It's possible. It's possible to carry out the attack from outside the country with the instruments of attack being in the country. Here's what I mean. So you can be an outsider, and then you manage, you carry out your attack, but then you use the local servers. For example, we have so many servers, for example, in Kenya or in Nairobi and all that. So what you do is that you first of all breach the local servers or the local computing systems within the country, and then use them to carry out the attack. So in such a case, it will be very difficult even for the government to pin. In fact, most likely they will even arrest the wrong person. Yeah, because the person who actually did it using the local facilities while outside the country. Yeah. So what happens is that, as I've told you, various organizations today have offensive and defensive mechanisms for attacks. For example, in other countries, when they want to send a message to another country, a good example is recently President Museveni of Uganda demanding the Kenyan Ocean and probably making some vile threats against Kenya. In other countries, what they would do is that they would send a message to Uganda by just attacking, or it's a temporal thing, but sending a message directly to them that if you ever mention the name of Kenya and war, this is just a greeting that we are giving you, by probably tampering with their systems for maybe 6 hours and then letting it know. And it's because today, just like warfare has really advanced in different facets. People talk about the space warfare, the land warfare, the sea warfare, and all that. There is another kind of warfare that is unfolding, and that is the cyber warfare. In this case, the countries that are advancing very fast, they have already thought of establishing units or establishing squads or agencies that are capable of carrying out large-scale kind of attacks on other countries which are perceived to be enemy. And this is why this is very important. Here is why this is very important. Primarily, nearly everything is computerized today. Let's talk about, for example, this light, the light that is in this studio. So this light is transmitted, is the same, probably different sources. So from where it is transmitted, the regulation of the amount of light or the electricity that is distributed to specific channels across the country depend on the regulation by the computerized system. Now, if you attack that computerized system, or you have the capability of increasing the amount of the voltage in a line or in any tension line, that means that you can even burn the entire house. You can target this line and then increase the voltage on this line and then bring this entire building in fire or on fire completely and burn it to the ground. What if they target maybe critical institutions like, or they tell you that we are now targeting the State House? That was an example. Can we increase the voltage to the power line on State House? And probably they have also terminated all the switches that you can probably, you will maybe pay or make peace. You see, that kind of a scenario. That is why cyber crime or cyber warfare is also very, very critical to any nation today.
But looking at the patterns that we are seeing this year, you're talking about hacktivism, which is, is not something that we often hear much about. But is it something that is new to Kenya? Because we know about financial fraud, and I know I mentioned about Mulot Boys. That is one that we know much about. And at one point, of course, the president in 2023 said that he was going to set up a software for Mulot Boys, of course, to have something to work on so that, it can just terminate these cases of fraud. But when we look at hacktivism, are we seeing it for the very first time, or it's something that has been there but has just been prominent right now?
Now, hacktivism specifically in Kenya, it's not been very common. And it's because people, first of all, it's a crime in Kenya. Secondly, you should not try to carry it out while you are in Kenya. Most of those things are carried out it's better you carry it out when you're outside the country. Yeah, so when you carry it out from outside the country, it's much easier to deal with it. Secondly, not so many people outside this country are so much interested in carrying out hacktivism in Kenya. So it's technically new.
You're saying money is the problem.
So money, people go, I mean, why should I spend a lot of time carrying out hacktivism while I can spend some little time and then get some money? So it's about the priority. And the people who can carry out such large-scale kind of attacks are not very many because it involves a lot of higher dimensional activities that require a lot of knowledge in such kind of, because first of all, you have to cover your tracks. In covering your tracks, you must invade other people. In invading other people, you must secure that environment, and they must not know that there is an activity that is going on, and you must use it to carry out the attack. So, yeah.
Now, for yesterday's attack, of course, they were not able to do much. They just redirected citizens to other websites. But what's the worst case scenario in case this wasn't really worked on, in time?
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario that, maybe we would have been looking at today?
So what you need to understand is that when an attack like that takes place, they are called opportunistic kind of attacks that follow. Yeah. Most of the times. So here is what people do most of the times. When an attack takes place, there is something called zero-day exploit. So zero-day exploit is an activity of a cyber attack which exploits the vulnerabilities of the day. For example, we've noticed that the government websites have fallen. So what do you do within that period if you are interested in such kind of attacks for the future? So you exploit that opportunity to also embed your malicious software or malicious code within those infrastructures of the government during that day. You don't have to exploit that opportunity that very day and carry out another attack that very day. But the fact that you are already in the system, you can still do any other thing. The moment you are in the system, then you can carry out several other activities in future. And I believe this is what exactly happened. They exploited an opportunity that existed in the past, and they were just waiting for the right moment to carry out their messaging. And this is happening across the world. Many countries' defense systems are already in other countries' defense systems, only waiting for the opportune moment to carry out the attack. Yeah, so that is essentially what zero-day exploit means. Yeah.
So what really do we need to do, as a nation to stay ahead of these hackers? Because if you're looking at it, we are a vulnerable state. You're saying that our websites are vulnerable, but maybe this opportunistic attack, as you put it, of course, they've seen that, we are not really taking this with the attention that we need to take it. Then what should we do, or what do we need to do as a nation to stay ahead?
So I'll start from maybe individual level. It's probably accuracy and all that. Now, you also need to understand why attacks normally take place. There are people who also just try to review the specific way. For example, myself, one of the things that I've done consistently is that when there is a new digital product, probably like in 2013, for example, TV47 was changed, 2023, TV47 was changing its website and moving to a new website. And so what I did is I carried out penetration tests on that website. Anybody can do that from outside. And when I did that, I was even able to get into your content management system. So I informed one of you, Mr. Majanga Michael, who is here. I think he can remember the case. So I informed him that, hey, man, I'm already in your website. I'm already in your content system. I can make any changes. I can even deny you access. And then I informed him. And then he ran to the ICT guys, and those ICT guys were able to mitigate that and correct it. I've done the same with the nation paywall systems. I've done the same with those other companies, generally. So there are people with good intentions when a new product comes out. And sometimes people even, we get paid for that, for just identifying a vulnerability within the systems that are available out. Some companies go ahead to just pay or call you for consultancy for purposes in that case. That is a good thing. Now, one thing that you need to know is that you must always carry out your tests as an organization. Look at the equipment that you have. Right now you are on air. But it is possible for someone else to broadcast their own things or to get hold the entire organization at ransom. So one of the things that we haven't done extensively as a country is to adequately carry out our penetration test and test our capacity to withhold serious attacks. Because we just set up businesses without thinking about how else can I secure my business technology-wise. You've set it up, you're running on air, but how else can I secure it? Because throughout the world, there are very many examples, including Sony Pictures, that is just maybe 1 decade ago or less, where there was a massive attack on them, and a lot of things took place as a result. We have the UK health system was hacked. We have had, even as recent as this year, 2 or 3 months ago, we had. So that penetration test is very much important at organization level. At government level, you must, the government must deliberately seek to establish cyber and look at cyber warfare as warfare. And I've given you the example of the electricity. There are so many other examples. This is a serious thing that if not looked into properly, they can, one day you will wake up and when you are in trouble, and then you find yourself in very deep trouble. So you must have both offensive and defensive mechanics for preventing and also destroying any possible attacks.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark. But in 30 seconds, as I wind up this conversation, should Kenyans be worried about what happened yesterday?
Yes.
They should?
They should be worried. Yeah, they should be worried because that was a clear indication that we are very vulnerable. Yes. So you never know what else is in that system. Probably they need to carry out a large-scale audit of the entire ICT infrastructure of the country, particularly on critical equipment like servers and all that, and see if they are good enough that can withstand future attacks. And they must be preemptive, they must be predictive.
Right. Okay. That is Mark Bar, an ICT expert, speaking to us about the hacking on government website that took place yesterday in the country. And of course, Interior PS Omolo, who is also the chairman of the National Computer and Cybercrimes Coordinated Committee, said yesterday that those responsible will face prosecution under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act of 2018. But is it strong enough for that particular hacking that took place yesterday? Of course, this is the conversation that we're going to continue outside the studio. We've come to the end of it. We are coming up with another conversation. You're watching Morning Cafe. Stay with us. Asante Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be blessed.